Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed your lunch. So as we just had a transition, another gap, like we have all day long, these different gaps and ending of one activity. Gap, so it's like a death, in between state, the next birth, we move on. So again, what's our motivation? What's our motivation for the afternoon? And all we're doing is just checking our mind. What am I focused on? Myself or others? Maybe I notice there's a lot of self-focus. Just normal for human beings. So can I expand a little bit out of what I would like for myself this afternoon? And think certainly here the next couple hours. Can I listen well and get some information that may benefit my path, that may help me develop a spiritual path, that can get me to a place where I'm unlimited in helping all living beings. Just take a moment, check your motivation. You can reestablish that motivation. So please relax. So that is the buoyant cushion for the practice. It always, we used to have years ago in the crossing of the English Channel. Many of you have done that from France to England or Belgium to England. And in the old days, before they had the tunnel, they had something called a hovercraft, if you're familiar, and it would rise up on a cushion of air. And it would rise up on this cushion of air, and then the crossing was smoother. You weren't so affected by all the waves and the bouncing and the. So that's our motivation. Gives me this wonderful, delightful cushion to expand from here about my own self-thinking, my own me. How can I help others? We just want to keep introducing that, reminding ourselves, getting that imprint. So sometimes after we eat, it's hard to sit and focus. So it's movie time. We're going to try. I just want you to meet my guru, meet Lama Zopa Rinpoche, our spiritual director. And I'm just going to show you first, there's a little, I need you to get a sense of his playfulness because he can be really stern and a little scary. But also, I just want you to, I'm just going to roll a little bit of the beginning. It was a talk about the emptiness of flowers. But then I want to show you a different video. And this was filmed at an incredible house Rinpoche had in California, Northern California, that was set up around 1998, 99. It became like a museum of every inch of it was covered with a holy being. It was just incredible. I spent a lot of time over there helping unpack different gifts people had sent and many late night meetings with Rinpoche. This is where the lunch took place when Geshe Zopa looked over, right? How long is this offering going to go? But many holy beings stayed here with Rinpoche. And unfortunately, the house is now on the market to be sold. It's been emptied. It had a big stupa in the back and statues and tankas, and it was just an amazing job of emptying it. It's kind of sad. Some of us are a little sad about it, but things change. And so this is at that house. So what we're going to do, I'll share my screen. We're going to try to get the sound happening. We'll see how. very, very serious, sometimes very playful, great sense of humor. Okay, so you're gonna
You have to unmute yourself, Venable.
Okay. So that's the issue again. Okay.
Numberless human being, numberless universe, free from oceans of suffering of samsara. I find it very, very interesting in the life, the plants. Very, 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 very interesting study. Flowers not same. You know, look at the difference here, 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 here. This, look this green flower, green color. The flower, green color. It's very, very interesting. We don't normally examine, evolution, how to come. So, there are people who believe, God has created. Yes, of course. That's people who have that karma, whom that believe fitted, or maybe other beliefs difficult for them to understand, or something like that. But however, the Buddhist, according to Buddhist, or reality, or according to Buddhist, you see, this comes from the mind. Something which is pleasant, then came from good, our good, positive thought, positive thought. Yeah, there's non-anger, non-attachment to that life. So the like this, and the positive thought, virtue thought, healthy mind. Another translation is another way to understand people is healthy mind. Non-virtue is not healthy mind. It's like chronic disease from the beginningless birth, like chronic disease of mind. So anyway, that's not unhealthy. That is not that's humble mind for the world, for numberless other living beings, and yours. So it's like that. So anything that's a pleasant flowers, anything pleasant brings happiness to you by having contact, by seeing. Then that is a result of your good karma, your positive mind, your healthy mind. Now all the details, like this, has so many details of these, shapes and on this flower, so tiny, but it's so many details. Oh, those are all the details. Like it said, Pico's feather has a different color. Those are karma of those. Why Pico has a different color? And those specific causes of those colors, specific colors, cause of the specific colors. This came from the mind, mind of the people. And so this came from the past mind, not is present, but when past. It's talking about evolution, so past mind. So there's it's called that's called that mind is the Gundrunga, five mental factors that always goes with principal consciousness. So one of the intention, so sampa. Attention and intention, so I think of intention, so simba, so that's mental factor. So karma is the mind, mental factor, intention from the five. So the salt karma came from the salt karma. Though all the details, like as I mentioned, the teachings, pick or color, different colors cause. So some the butterflies, some of the cells on the wings, shapes, colors. So cause of each of those causes are cell karma. And this something also can be on our human body, or many different colors, all the details, that's what. So here, flower, all the details, the small, all the details, all the if you check all this self karma, so it's the mind, come to the mind. So in unpleasant things, pleasant other, for example, the view of the eye, five senses, view of the eye sense, any unpleasant things by conjecture, by seeing, then gives unpleasant feeling, then or result of your negative mind. Therefore, in Buddhism, in reality, so your mind is the main creator. So therefore, the emphasis is to look after one's mind. Dharma practice means taking care of your mind, taking care of yourself. Dharma practice means taking care of yourself. Not practicing Dharma is not taking yourself, not taking care of yourself. Kind of, the Dharma practice means taking care of yourself, taking care of your mind. So like that. So this subdue the negative mind. Subdue the mind, subdue the negative mind, which brings problem to you and to all the living beings, to the world, to all the living beings, subdue that. And then brings mind which brings happiness to yourself, to all the living beings, happiness to all the living beings, to the world also, to the family and to all that. And then practicing Dharma. All this special mind teaching, especially compassion. Special compassion, the most important thing. It is compassion generated, daily men practice compassion. Then all your happiness, not only this life, but all the future life happiness, not only that, the ultimate happiness, liberation from oceans of samsara, blissful state of peace. Besides that, then ultimate happiness, the state of omniscient mind, you achieve that. Not only that, but you can cause numberless happiness, hunger cause, animal, human beings, intimate state beings, the temporal happiness, then ultimate happiness, blissful state of peace, liberation from oceans of samsara suffering. And then you can cause the purest happiness, state of omniscient mind, Sangye Buddhahood, and trust all the number, every numberless, every sentence things, whatever the cause. If you practice compassion day and night, your practice, main practice, fundamental practice of compassion towards others. So I think that's the very heart of the practice. That's the very heart of the spiritual practice. Generally, I'm not calling Buddhism, but spiritual practice. And that's the heart of spiritual practice. That's the heart of Buddhism. Yes, that makes the best person. Thank you, Alan.
Should I put this back on?
Are you muted?
Yes, yeah, you're great. You muted me. Thank you. So we're good. Yeah, we're good now. Okay. What did you think of that? Everything comes from your mind? So something to think about. And just think about this, what happens in our world, and it disturbs us. So the negative emotions, the illusions get activated. What happens is you get disturbed. Small thing, big thing. Somehow we get disturbed. And then it seems like it's coming from out there, doesn't it? And our whole world functions that way. The whole world. We see what's going on in the world, wars right now, these wars going on, you know, and it's scary, Ukraine. It's certainly scary if you're in Europe because it is your backyard. It's like very close to you. So, but what happens very much appears, we see what's going on in the Middle East, you know, so one side blames the other and they lob a rocket and then they blame, don't take responsibility, then they lob a rocket. So for centuries, we've had that conflict going on. His Holiness once said, sometimes you just have to let the karma burn out. You know, the causes is just too much, you know, so sometimes, and eventually because of change, it will change. So we know, especially where you're located, whoever thought that the Berlin Wall would come down? When I grew up, that was like, that would never happen. Could never imagine when I was growing up. And then something changed, right conditions came together that elected one leader, and one leader had a little bit different feeling and talked to somebody, you know, and then the next thing they know, they decide to dismantle the USSR. So whoever, you know, anything's possible. Anything's possible because everything's empty of any inherently intrinsic, concrete, solidly existing, permanent experience. Nothing exists that way. But that's not how we feel. So the best counter, and I'll mention this again and again, the best counter is to learn about emptiness, study about emptiness, start with small books on emptiness till you understand that, write down your questions, get them answered, learn how to effectively meditate on emptiness, right? Get some classroom hours on emptiness, then approach the bigger books on emptiness, okay? That's the best thing for all the delusions, for all the balance of the mind, but it's profound and it's hard. So build a proper foundation before you get into emptiness, the Lam Rim. Emptiness is part of the Lam Rim, but it's a higher level of the Lam Rim. Lam Rim again, Lam means path. Rim, stages, steps on the path, stages of the path. So precious human rebirth, death and impermanence, lower realms of existence, refuge, karma. Those 5 topics make up a motivation of somebody they call a lower capable being. Lamrim is split into 3 divisions: lower, middle, high, based on the motivation of the person practicing. So those 5 topics I just mentioned, you get terrified that when I die, things are going to be a lot worse for my mind. And that terrifies me. So I practice. Okay. So you don't use the terrified. We're not a fear of, I'm in a paralytic fear, I can't do anything. No, you go, wow, this is scary. You know, at some point you explore death and impermanence. And you go, I don't want to die. I don't want to die in a lot of pain. I don't want to die with a lot of regret and confusion. What can I do about it? There's a whole path of what you can do about it. It's very clearly delineated, marked out. So you go, okay, let me try. But you want to try, again, gradual, step by step. Start at the beginning. Don't just jump. I want to practice Tantra. I want to have an experience. You won't have any experiences unless you have a good foundation, some purification, some accumulation of merit. It's a process. And in this tradition, it's all mapped out. It's all really clear from that being you just saw in the video. I teach in his lineage. Sorry, if you want another lineage, that's totally okay. I don't have any problem with that. But find something that works for you. You connect with somebody, you connect with the teacher. Some people say, well, I've got a center down the street. Great, that's convenient, good. Go there, use it. You know, I met my friend and we go to retreats 4 times a year and great. You have to find what's going to work for you. So I found something that works. So I like to, I like to teach from that lineage because I know it's authentic in the lineage of the Dalai Lama as well. And much of Tibetan Buddhism, it's all related. It's just a matter of which teacher you align with. They're all good. It's all really good. But check up on the teachers. Don't just accept and jump because everybody's following this. You check yourself. His Holiness even says, be a spy on your guru. It takes 6 years. He even says it takes 6 years and you go to their teachings, check them out. Now everybody's online. You don't need to travel. You watch people online. Everybody's online. The thing is, you need to get in person too. So watch online, see who you like, and then say, people come through Switzerland. They all come through Switzerland. So then you look and you try to look on, they all have websites. They all have Facebook things. His Eminence Ling Rinpoche, His Eminence Song Rinpoche. They all have, and you look and you go, oh, wait. Oh, look, they're coming to France. I'm going to go there. Coming to Switzerland. I'll go there. Great. You make a plan. You can plan sometimes 6 months before. You want to go and you just see what it's like in person. There will be a lot of people there. That's okay. A lot of people. And you just take it and see a little bit. And then maybe you like the teacher a little bit slowly, try some of the practices. You get to a point and then maybe they come again. And maybe you can try, contact the center, maybe you get an attendant, somebody. Can I have a private meeting with this teacher? And slowly have very clear practice questions. You know, you don't want to ask them what color car should I buy. Ask them, you want some guidance. People used to ask Lamas over Rinpoche all the time, many meetings, and you get some guidance. And then don't ask the guidance unless you're planning to put it into practice. Don't waste their time and don't waste your time. So it creates obstacles on your path. If you ask for some help, you ask questions, and then you're not intending to follow. But then you follow, then you can check back with them in a few years. I did these practices. And slowly, that's how you cultivate a relationship with some of the teachers. You can try. Just a suggestion. But then you really want to understand. So then you have this motivation, lower capable being. I'm terrified of these things are going to happen. I'm going to die and go to a worse realm. So I better practice. Okay? Then build on that motivation, middle scope, middle capable being. Build on that motivation. You go, well, I may save myself from a horrible rebirth, but right now in samsara, I'm still suffering. And even though it looks like we're somewhat comfortable, but there's still suffering. And I'd really love to bring about an end to my own suffering and reach nirvana. Nirvana is liberation, okay? A permanent cessation of all your mental afflictions. Nirvana, that's medium capable beings. You go, yeah, I'd like to end my own suffering. That sounds great. Wonderful. So all the teachings that are in that section all deal with the suffering. The 3 of the 68, we call it. There's 3 types of suffering. They're also broken down into 6 sufferings, and they're broken down into 8 sufferings. Okay. The reason, and it sounds unpleasant, but you want to study and read and meditate on them, because you really need to understand how you suffer in order to bring about an end to your suffering. So it's very effective, and that's why it was the first teaching the Buddha ever gave. There is suffering. Okay? I was a bit surprised by that when I got into Buddhism. This guy gets enlightened, and this is the first thing that he says. I wanted to hear about love and happiness. Suffering, right? But you have to traverse through that to understand. We have this wish, oh, compassion. Oh, I so want people to be free of suffering. But we don't even understand their suffering. So it's superficial. But when I really traverse through and meditate on these sufferings and then start to generate disgust, it's unbearable. I don't want to suffer like that anymore. When you have that really rising up in your throat, right, you commit yourself to getting out of samsara. I can't do this anymore. I'm done with this. So I'm going to dive deeper into my practice and then build on that, on those two motivations, highest scope of the Lam Rim. Okay, higher capable being, they say. And my motivation is, it's not just enough for me to get out of my own suffering when all these other beings are suffering. So then build on that heart of bodhicitta. I'm so motivated to help them, but how can I help them? So then I want to get emptiness. That also comes in the bigger scope. I'm going to also get meditative stabilization, shine, because you need calm abiding. You need to attain calm abiding to meditate on emptiness in meditation to get a direct perception of emptiness. Okay, and that rips out the root of all your suffering. Okay, but with the good heart, then I can become a Buddha, and then I can really help. So all those topics involved are the Lam Rim. Okay, so there's courses called Discovering Buddhism, and if you're interested, and I'll bring. Oh no, maybe I brought. This is helpful. I brought, no, maybe not. Just a reference because somebody was copying down, but yeah, I did. So these are some cards these students made me, but on the back is fpmt.org. So that's our organization, but it also has my website and things. But this way you can, at the FPMT website, you can go and there's a wealth of information. First of all the centers, there's a centers tab. So you're in another country, there's probably a center there. We don't have much in Africa, but we do have things all over. And then, sorry, okay, that just landed for her. Okay, great. And then there's study programs. So there's an education tab. And there's announcements on there, and there's different things happening and all kinds of resources. You can serve at centers. You can see what positions are available at different centers. If you want to live at a retreat center or something. But then you can go to the education part, and some of these programs will be offered at Latsam. Some are offered online at other centers. And you can see, but start with something basic. If you're newer, don't just jump into something you're not going to understand. Go with something. Discovering Buddhism takes you through 14 modules that take you through subject by subject, the Lam Rim, with meditations. There's some weekend retreats or day-long practices, and you get a little, and there's readings. So the more you can do with the course, the deeper understanding. But I know people that have done Discovering Buddhism 3 times. Each time they get a little bit more out of it. The first time they didn't have time to do the readings. So they just wanted to get the teachings, and sometimes it's online, sometimes it's in person, right? And then the second time they went back, and now they were going to do the meditations. Now they have some time. The next time they went back, they did all the readings. You get deeper level depending on what kind of time you have. Okay. But then you slowly start to put it together. And then you can build on that with other programs. Make sense? Okay. So with emptiness, you start poking at and this is our world, it's out there. Somebody else is doing it to me. So you have to check, how does the mind sit with that? And you also have to check something I'll ask you. Where does your suffering come from? What caused so the Buddha, the first teaching he gave is their suffering. 4 noble truths. Number 1 is their suffering. So suffering exists. That was number 1. Okay. So again, I was a little bit like, there's suffering. This is what the guy gets enlightened. This is what he, okay. But truth number 2, okay. There's a cause of the suffering. So I can't get rid of the suffering until I understand what causes it. Okay, there's a cause to the suffering. Okay, then fortunately we have 3 and 4, truths 3 and 4. There's an end to the suffering. Thank God there's an end to the suffering. And I'll just leave you that this is it, right? And then number 4, there's a path to the end of the suffering. You know, we've got this really authentic layout, the way Lama Zopa Rinpoche's done it. Okay, so any ideas? I'm just curious. Where does your suffering? And so this is stuff we never think about. Where does your suffering come from? But something suddenly happens. Does anybody have any issues with people at work? Have you had some issues? Somebody at work you don't like? Yeah. Okay. Somebody at work you don't like. What's your experience of them? It's them, isn't it? Boy, is it them. You get reinforcement sometimes, as I mentioned before. Everybody in the office doesn't like them. Okay, so it reinforces it's them. Reinforces, I get this, okay? So you blame them, you have no, and then all their negative qualities are exaggerated. Okay, but here's how you poke, here's how you know and check, but you have to do your work that this is not accurate. This is not accurate, okay? So you projected onto that person a lot of negative traits. I did it with the guy at work, I mentioned. All these negative traits, okay? Does everybody in their life think of them that way? Generally not. They're friends. They are married, they have kids, they have a mother who loves them, who might still be alive. I mean, it's amazing, but we never think about that. Just, they're a block right now in my office, my work thing. You know, and everybody feels that way. So it very much reinforces they're out there, it's something out there. But here Rinpoche is saying, a karmic seed comes up, negativity in my mind causes you to experience reality that way as negative. Positivity in your mind, positive seed ripening, causes me, think about it, causes me to impute pleasure on something attractive. This is what Buddhism says. This is the way you deal with your mind and your delusions. It's radical. I know it's radical when you first hear it, but you have to, so then you want to explore, where does my suffering come from? And I'm just curious, any of you, where do you think your suffering comes from? Think about moments when you suffer. You have small suffering. You know, you knocked your knee into a cabinet and, you know, small suffering. Bigger suffering, if you've ever had a breakup in a relationship. If your kid is sick. You hate your boss. You have a terrible situation at work. Financial issues. Illness. Where does it come? What causes it? What do you think causes it?
Maybe the wish that everything would be perfect.
The wish that everything would be perfect could cause your suffering. Okay, that's one thought. And
yeah, I was going to say misexpectations about reality.
Misexpectations about reality. Sure, we have a lot of expectations. I do find expectation is the mother of disappointment, isn't it? Right? Sometimes I lead pilgrimages and I have an orientation in the beginning, and people come on a pilgrimage, you know, with great expectations, like this is going to change my life, and you know, so I just say, leave the expectations home. So you have a false expectation about, that certainly causes suffering. Certainly causes suffering. Where does that come from? False expectation about something. What are we talking about?
Well, pleasure, like an expectation for happiness that you're expecting to get from someone or something.
Right. And we put on somebody else to bring me happiness, like that. Yes.
For myself, I discovered I want it this way, but the world comes in the edge. So there's a discrepancy between what I want and what the world.
Right.
The problem is I'm always right. Fun part. What can I do?
So he's saying, you know, he has his view of what he would like, but then the world's going in a different way. And then the challenge is that he's always right. So that creates a problem. Okay. And again, this all comes down to what is it? So where does that come from? Where's the self-cherishing is certainly part of it, huge part of it. Karma. So karma is one of the causes is your suffering. Thank you. Karma. And the other one is delusion. This is what we're talking about. Delusion and karma. That's what causes your suffering. There's nothing else. So you get a false expectation about something. I'm thinking happiness is going to do this. I'm thinking it needs to be my way. My way, I remember one friend of mine, her boyfriend, she kept saying, oh, my boyfriend, he really likes you. He gets on with you. He doesn't get on with any of my friends. She told me, one of my roommates. And because there was his way of doing stuff and there was the wrong way. That's how he went through it. It was a continuum. And I just kind of humored him. Like, he'd be like, well, that's what, and I'd be like, okay. Because it was just, so delusion and karma. It's that simple. It's delusion and karma. So again, karma is action. Remember, she said it's your mind. Your mind has thoughts. The thoughts create activities. You say something, you do something. Like that's, we want to keep those trained. We train. The mind is like your muscles, even though it's not physical. You can train your mind. We do it in meditation. So formally in meditation on my cushion, and then when I come out of the meditation, I do it in a less formal way. I check, okay, how's my mind doing? So I do a retreat, and I'll make solo retreat time every year. But I do the retreat, but then I want to come out and I want to interact with people. So how's it going after the retreat? It's nice after a retreat. There's often a little softness. No, the world has no edges. Sometimes I find after a good retreat. Okay, but then I've got my mind. So karma's still operating, and it's also causing me to experience what's unfolding from past deeds that are in my most subtle mind. Okay, that's happening. And then based on the past deeds and based on that fundamental ignorance I mentioned before, okay, that starts creating the role of all the other delusions. So what I want to do is just notice, start becoming aware of my mind. As I said, these 3 simple steps is, number 1 is awareness. You practice, you could break it down like this. Number 1, I'm just going to try to show up more and more and figure out what's going on with my mind. I can't sometimes do it in person if this person is irritating me so much, but then I'm going to later take it back to my cushion at home quietly and kind of go, what happened there? God, I was a mess earlier today. And you might even say things like, I was just really tired. Yeah. Or that person really triggers me, but when I'm with these people, I'm really good. But that person, I don't feel that safe around them. And you're just noticing. I'm not blaming them. I'm just noticing certain situations in your life. When you do this, you're more comfortable. When you do that, so try to find more comfort then. Why not? We want to align ourselves sometimes with healthy people. Rinpoche said healthy mind. And there are some negative influences, okay? So the first thing is this awareness. I just want to watch what's showing up, okay? Then here's number 2. So then I watch what's showing up, okay? And let's say you notice something's not working in your mind. Something's not working. Delusion comes up. It's something painful, something not pleasant, something irritating, something fearful, whatever it is. So number 2 is then do something different. Do something different than the normal habitual way that puts you back in this habit over and over, back in this discomfort over and over again. You have to try things. I'm giving you different techniques to try, but you have to cook them yourself. I can't do it for you. You have to make it, right? So you try something and you might go, oh, that was helpful. Then here's step number 3. Do it again. And do it again, and do it again, and do it again. Because eventually it'll automatically pop. And you're right in front of that person, and you're present, compassionate, loving, and I'm clear, and I'm balanced. Make sense? Do you understand? So it's a process. So be patient with yourself in the process. Like that. So then emptiness is saying, we get into emptiness. So very much there's a concrete person at your work, something in the job or in your family that very much seems to be quite alive out there. But can you pose a little bit? This is coming from my mind. And that's hard to own that. It's hard to take. Buddhism's all about taking responsibility. It's all about taking responsibility. And when you take proper responsibility in a compassionate way with yourself too, do it in a relaxed manner. Don't jam yourself all the time with practice. Like sometimes we push a little with practice, that's good. But then give some space, especially when you're newer, right? And then push a little bit again. Going to try these practices, okay? Then relax back, see how the mind is. Okay? So slowly we'll notice it so much appears that they're concretely existing out there. But Buddhism is saying it's coming from my mind, it's coming from mine. And isn't it interesting how you might be in a workspace, whatever, and you have some issues with somebody at work, and they treat you quite rudely. And then you notice how it's amazing how they get on so well with this other person. And that other person just thinks they're the greatest. Okay, so is it the person or is it my mind? If I even said to you now, here, I don't know if I'm picking the right food, but how many people here, I don't know if you call it aubergine, eggplant, aubergine? How many, put your hand up. How many people like aubergine? We've got a lot of people that like aubergine. How many don't really like it? Okay, we got a couple of us not overly fond, you know. Is it the aubergine then? He and I have a different experience. Okay, so that's a mundane thing, but that's how it works. And you meet your friends and everything. You've had people, the same thing when you met your beloved, greatest person, and then your friends were like, I don't know, they're all right. A totally different experience than I'm having. You know, I've gone over a cliff, but they're kind of going, I don't know. Okay, so we want to analyze. Question.
Yeah, question. There are for me there are perceptions and self-perceptions from other people. Sometimes the people or the person is has really something against or not against. I will say that I would not say against, but really a different behavior to one people and then to the other.
They treat people differently? You say
Yeah.
yes,
There are,
absolutely.
like there is a part from the self that need to work with emotion and with these feelings and thoughts and letting go and like cultivate the opposite, like the antidotes. But what about when also the person, the difficult person, it's also really meaning to do something against you or the
Right.
other person?
Again.
Does that exist through this possibility? How can?
So we're going to go back again. You have to go back to, and this is the fundamental teaching here. Everything comes to your mind. Doesn't matter. Okay, now there may be energy out there. Like you're validly, you and she are saying, yeah, there is this person. And that was really rude what she said. You'll get confirmation from somebody. Okay, still comes from your mind. Okay. So what you do, and there's abusers that have really, really harmed people. When you were a child, many students I know have horrible things like this. So that abuser becomes huge. They may have even passed away. Okay, so this is the kind of dismantling of holding them, this concretized massive monster that did this to me. When you have the idea that it comes from my mind, okay, first of all, number one, I'm not disagreeing with any of the misfortune of it. It's horrible. Number two, get yourself away from the abuser as soon and safely as you can. You don't allow it to go on because it's coming from my mind. Not at all. Buddhism's not saying that. Be skillful. This is about building your skill and your wisdom, method and wisdom. Okay? So you acknowledge this person, you might be in an abusive relationship. You might live with an alcoholic who's still drinking, a drug user. Common, right? So be skillful. Either move out, figure out a way to safely get yourself out there if they're harming, get away from them. Maybe it happened in childhood, but you've been carting around this rock. They did this to me. They did this to me. They did this to me. It's only affecting you. The abuser may not even know if they're alive. Okay. So there's also forgiveness practices, many forgiveness practices that are hugely helpful on one level. So Archbishop Desmond Tutu wrote an incredible book, The Book of Forgiving. He wrote with his daughter. And there's exercises in there, a fourfold process of forgiveness. Find some forgiveness, many forgiveness books. So something like that, do the work and let it go because the rock will dissolve. You'll be freer because as long as you have the rock inside of you, not willing to forgive, okay, they continue to hold you hostage. You're still a victim. So you have to do that work. But then how do you want to see this person? So realistically, again, you can, and then as a Buddhist, you'd say, Buddhism says it comes from my mind. So the cause was in my most subtle mind, my most subtle consciousness. And that's what reincarnates in Buddhism. That's what goes on in Buddhism. Okay, so I must have created the cause in the past. What an unfortunate cause I created. What a mistake I made. Okay, you're not a bad person. So don't lay a trip on yourself of like, oh my God, I'm evil. Like, no, people make mistakes. Again, we're human. We're not Buddhists. We have limited consciousness. And as a result, we misunderstand. So I must have created some really negative cause that caused me to be born into a family where I was abused as a child, you might say, right? So, and when you get to a higher level, Buddhists say when you do suffer, when you're suffering, it is a type of purification. Okay, it is a type of purification. Okay, now don't put yourself in a suffering situation to say, well, I'm going to purify. We're not masochists, but suffering's going to turn up in samsara. That's its nature. So when it shows up and you get fired and you don't think you did anything wrong, and when your partner breaks up with you, right? And when something bad happens, you get mugged, you get something happens, somebody breaks into your home, right? These things. There's some people that go, okay, I created the cause. I hope they can use the stuff. I offer it to them so they don't get all that stealing karma. There's some people that have a huge span of mind thinking about unfortunate circumstances. It's really challenging. I mean, this is like the pith of mind training. It's really hard. That's why it's so radical, these kind of things. But think about it. Really think about so slowly so I created the cause. How unfortunate that it had to happen this way. Let me try to work with the person, forgive. You know, and you can actually people set up interventions to get the person out of the house or to waken them up. You can't do this behavior anymore. You have to stop drinking. Or in the case of other abuse, you know, and it could be, let's say it's your father or an uncle or something like that. So then they want to keep trying to contact you so you might have safety zones to say, I can't really be around them right now. Can't have them in my life. I don't feel safe. I'm too vulnerable, you know. And then later, as you're doing your forgiveness work, you might feel like, you know, and so what they did, and this is one of the things Archbishop Desmond Tutu was part of this, one of the things that really tried to help South Africa when they came out of apartheid, as many of you know. So they, instead of kind of imprisoning a bunch of the white people and blaming the white people, so fortunately Nelson Mandela moved in with a group of people that said, we're going to try truth and reconciliation. It's brilliant. You know, there's places that are trying that on small scales, but that was quite significant in South Africa's, Republic of South Africa's history. So what they did is, and you can do this with somebody that abused you, you have them agree, would you like to meet? You know, so that you can tell your story about how they harmed you. It's important to tell your story sometimes. You're not necessarily concretizing it to hold on to it, but make sure there's somebody safe there with you, so that you're not alone with the abuser to get abused again. So make sure, and then you see if they're willing to do it, that there's an avenue for them safely held that you can tell your story. Tell them one, just tell your story, get it out there. And that's what they did in South Africa. So the people would own what they did. And a lot of people asked forgiveness, things like that. Now, so it really depends on the other person, but this is some work you can just do, yet you're holding it. I created the cause for this, but I want to heal this now. So in our own preparation for death, just our general life, like finding meaning in life, I mentioned that, but in this preparation, I want to clean up any unhealthy relationships I've had. Then I die with no regrets. Then I'm peaceful. Because there's somebody you may have said did something really bad to, and there's somebody didn't have enough time to listen and patience, and I said this to my mother, my father. Heal those relationships now when you can. And even if the person died, and even if the abusers died, you can still do the work, and you put them across from you. Say what you need to say. Okay? Can you say it in a gentle way where I take responsibility that I created the cause for this, but I really want to release myself from this, and say what you want to say over and over and over. Get it all out. And then in this process, the book of forgiving, then you forgive. You try to say, okay, I let you go. This has happened. And especially if we say, I created the cause, it's easier. The person's less concretized out there. But there is somebody out there that did it to you. So okay, great. And often abusers, they come from families of abuse. So then the big compassionate heart might hold them and realize This was the best they could do. I know it sounds awful, but for some abusers, that's their point of context. That's how they were raised. That's all they know. They don't know that there's anything else. You know? I remember at one center, we lived next door to a family, 4 little girls and the parents, and they had no money. And they lived on an adjacent property that somebody that owned the property let them live in a trailer, right? And they lived with old carcasses of cars the father had that had broken down, rusting around them, and just a massive junk around them. You know, and they'd be out there in the rain over a little grill, you know, grilling hot dogs, and you know, it was just so sad. And we used to give them these care packages and try to help them, but they didn't really want to live anywhere else. And the little girls grew up with, if your context is you live in like a junkyard, that's familiar to you. That's comfort to you. So when you come into some other space and it's really clean, you may not feel comfortable. Like we might not feel comfortable in junk, but that's how they grew up. That was their front yard. That's like stepped out of the house and it was just, you know, the house alone was, the trailer alone was full of stuff. So you have to think of it as abuser, maybe raised with an alcoholic parent that abused them, and they, you know, and they don't, that's the best they can do. Right? And they're human beings. That means they make mistakes. So, you know, when you're younger, you blame your parents for stuff. But, you know, how many parents do you know, how many of your parents went to, no, I'm just asking, how many of your parents went to the Cambridge and Oxford of parenting school? Right? There's no parenting schools. Isn't that amazing? This is the most important thing you do on the planet is raise children well. There's no school, you learn it from your parents, how they did it. Well, how well did they do it? They did the best they could. I really believe that. Okay? Limited, with limited consciousness. So they're going to make mistakes. Sometimes they really make mistakes. Okay? But Buddhism's back to, and this is coming from my mind, I created the cause. So what I want to continue to do as well, in whatever forgiveness work you want to do, and don't be surprised because with forgiveness work, you forgive. And then here's the 4th step that he gives in his book. 4th step is you have a choice then at the end. You can renew the relationship and decide we're going to go forward and try to have a relationship, healthy relationship, not how it was. If the person's agreed, and you may set guidelines for that. You may even have written guidelines. I know people that have done that, right? Or it's perfectly okay to realize I'm not having this relationship anymore. It's done. That's okay. That's okay. So you have choices, but don't be surprised if you wake up the next morning and you have to forgive again. It's a process. And the really big abuse takes time. But then you release yourself from that rock at your heart. You can really love. And so again, Buddhism goes back, it comes to my mind. So there is an appearance of somebody out there, but my mind created this more and more. So what I want to do from here on out is I want to try so much to direct the activities of my body, speech, and mind, as much as I'm able as a limited person, to good things, positive thoughts, proper speech, virtuous speech, virtuous activities, motored from them. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is stuff, I created stuff, most of it I don't remember, past lives. I'm going to keep doing purification practices to clean up, to wash away what's been done. And that's a lot of our practice for a lot of students I know in Buddhism. Purifying negativities, accumulating positive energy to help you move along the path. So what happens is there's always these excuses. I've heard many Buddhist students, you know, well, I know it comes from my mind, but that guy's still a jerk. Okay, so you really have to fully own it. And it takes time into higher level practice to really, in the midst of your suffering, you know, I recently came through an experience, a couple of the worst years of this life for me, that just, and you know, worse in some ways, but other ways not at all. So after COVID, Rinpoche sent me back to California to a center to help another center, a different center. I've known this center for years, incredible center, potential retreat center, but the potential, it's an amazing place. And there's statues and stupas and a beautiful gompa, and it's amazing. And people love to come through there on the weekends, hiking, camping. It's about 80 acres, redwood forest, part of it's just amazing. But harmony-wise, it's always had issues. Ever since I've come in contact with the center for years ago. Our main headquarters of our organization used to be located there, but it's got amazing stuff. People that have tried to help, good people, good-hearted people. There's some very senior students living around there that have helped for years, senior to me. Okay, so Rinpoche sends me back there to help. They really need help. They really had a very bad problem in COVID because it's a residential center. They had the harder time in COVID than the city centers. City centers got online, they got their stuff, they could invite anybody they wanted. They ended up booming. Residential centers have more property to pay for, right? And what happened when I got there, due to the fires in California, as you know, we were alerted by our insurance company that they were canceling our insurance cover for fire. And they canceled insurance, all the insurance carriers canceled insurance all over the state of California in 2021 for any residential facility. Can you imagine? And do you know how expensive it is in California? You know, it's like here, it's like so expensive, everything. So one center up, and so my job was researching right away, we've got to get coverage. This is, you know, so I called different centers. I knew I had relationships with some of these centers. Some were richer than us, some were kind of like us. We didn't have much money. And I call a center up north, very famous Vipassana center, very wealthy. And they said, oh yeah, we were canceled as well. So they said, we found a carrier. I said, okay, what's the deal? What do you have? So they said, we used to have 15 million of coverage, $15 million covered for $40,000 a year. And that's actually reasonable in California. 40,000 a year, that's pretty good at this point. So I said, well, that's pretty good. And he says, so we found another carrier, insurance company. And now we had to drop our insurance to 10 million a year. Okay. So it's hard to get everything covered. 10 million. You want to guess what it costs a year? $300,000 a year. I'm not kidding. And they had the money and they said, so we're going to pay that. We couldn't pay that, 300. So a lot of the other centers had to go on this state plan. The state had to bail out these centers because the state doesn't want to own these centers, but the centers would close if there's, you know, so it was things like that. So I went back to this center and then the board immediately resigned, and because they fired the director, and then one by one they resigned. It was like a sinking ship, and everybody just kept jumping off. And oh great, Amy's here, she'll solve it. You know, great. I couldn't solve. I was not a solver for that. Is everything dripping? Because we watered the plant. No rain showers coming down. Great. So, but anyway, you know, you have an intent to you give it your best shot. And so we put together a new board. We got some instructions from Rinpoche, put together a board. I didn't want to be director, so Rinpoche didn't title me that, but then trying to put me in charge of it. And amazingly, there was just incredible resistance. And I was the only one on the board, only one involved that had run residential retreat centers successfully. I'd run 2 of them successfully. I'm not saying I'm so great. It was just, we slowly worked along and a lot of hard work. And we tried to, you know, right these boats in a sense, you know, and I just couldn't believe. It's like every time I turned, there was a door shutting in my face, metaphorically. Every suggestion I had. And some of them were friends of mine, good people, but every suggestion, oh no, we can't do that. That's not going to work. Oh no, we're not going to do that. We're, you know, and I was the new person coming back to California. They were all living there in much better living situations than myself. The center didn't even offer me a room in the beginning to live there. So I had to pay somebody else, you know, it was just so expensive. And so it was hard, you know, it was very uncomfortable for me. But, you know, I had a different scene in COVID. I just came out of the best year of my life, COVID, you know, because I was home alone, not traveling so much and teaching online. And it was just great. But I knew that I had to turn up the heat of my practice a little. I knew something, the next phase, you know, sometimes when you're going into something like that, especially spiritual path. So I wanted to do this. Certainly wanted to follow Rinpoche's advice. I knew there would be benefit. So I went through a couple of really hard 2.5 years of this, and then really came to a conclusion I felt like I'd finished my work. You know, we finally hired a director. It took us about 2.5 years to hire somebody but at times I went through the discomfort and I could see my mind trying to blame, trying to hold on to Tim. And then I just went, you know, the more I could go back to, wow, this is such an interesting karmic arisal, you know, coming from like this, such an interesting manifestation of my mind. Sometimes it's a beautiful rose. Sometimes it's a rainstorm when you don't want it. Sometimes it's a minor car accident. Sometimes it's you get the flu. Like it's just from my mind, just coming from my mind. So kind of riding that wave of trying to stay on the surfboard and going, I'd be at a meeting and I'd be like, it's so interesting how, like, you know, how many negative things they can say to me. Like it became so unreal because it was so outrageous on one level. I had to be like, this is such great purification. Like I just realized what was kind of going down. Like I went, it's none of these people because they're really good-hearted and they mean well, and the center has its own karma. So there's all this stuff. So just how you want to face it. And I felt like I did the best work I could do. And then I really got this sense at one point I was released. And the more I could really embrace it like that, and then that I felt like the work had finished, and then it changed. And then it became something completely different than that. So the more just try to get in the space of imagine metaphorically, you take a couple steps back, you know, because when there's difficulty out there, it's like, whoa, get me away from this, but also choose. You have a choice. So there are times when you may decide, I need a little bit less of these people, okay, or this person. And another example, so I had someone in my life very close to me, a couple people that family that had a certain behavior, one of them that was very unhealthy in the family. And I wasn't living around the family. So when I came back to the East Coast of the States to help my parents, suddenly I'm back closer to family dinners and family dynamics. And I saw this dynamic that when you're only visiting for a week, it's all fun and games, right? But living there, I could see this one person dominated the whole scene. And it was really not healthy. According to my view, I was really like, wow. And then I heard from some family members how unhappy they were with the dynamic. So it kind of went on for some weeks and months. And, you know, and I kind of just watched the situation. Again, my mind, suddenly karma changed. I'm back in this kind of scene. So when I initially tried to tell the one person that could influence this negative person, the one person closest to them, and when I at one point tried to, you know, discuss a little bit with him about, well, that's, you know, when that happens and you guys are just talking about one thing that no one else is included in at a dinner table, these other people feel excluded. Have you ever thought about that? And then they got really defensive initially. Like, what do you mean? You know, who do you think you are? So then I just back and went, well, doesn't matter. Never mind. Let it go. You know, so you try a little bit, but positive communication. I tried to come from a good place of like, you know, and then I talked to the other people about that were feeling disempowered and not heard and ignored and all these other and criticized about, can you find a way to gently speak up in something or give a concrete example? So effective communication. Can you do that slowly? So they very gently started nudging too. So sometimes you have a little group dynamic that can rebalance, and then slowly a little bit of this. So, and then what I found was the person that was the dominant whatever suddenly realized I was kind of stirring this pot, and they didn't like me. They were kind of angling, and I just let it go. And I'd always be really patient with them and friendly, and you know, and if they didn't want the thing, I just, no, I was fine, you know, whatever. There's certain dynamics, but always try to be really courteous and polite and generous. So then slowly this went on for some months. And so you have to be patient with the process and slowly months. But the thing is, generally that kind of stuff ends up coming out at some point. And so suddenly this other person closest to this started to get feedback from other people about the person, other people outside the family, how they didn't feel safe with this person, that he said negative things, he had really critical things to say, why was he like that? So suddenly there was less, like he realized, and then he was able to have a conversation with them saying, when we do this, we can't keep talking about these things and we can't slowly, and then slowly realizing there are some issues with this person. So I just was kind of patient, holding my own thing. But what I realized was these two people would invite me sometimes to go with them to something like a day long. You want to come with us? So one time I went, right? It was a horrible day with them because the other person just was rolling through sexist, racist jokes all day, and the other person would just agree with them, not have any, oh, ho, ho, and there I am. And it was just a weird day. And so then they asked me again to come, and then I would kind of, so skillfulness. So then I kind of say, oh, so first of all, I'm happy to be invited. I want them to know oh, how nice. Thank you for inviting me. Oh, that sounds great. So who's going? I want to know, is it just the two of them or are there other people? Because I don't feel safe anymore with the two of them. That's her, that's, so I don't need to put myself back in that scene. Just my skillfulness, but I'm still owning it's from my mind. They're not bad. They're beings just like me. They want to be happy. They don't want to suffer. Right? I don't need to get into like, it's them, it's them, it's them. I don't need to concretize them anymore. But I can certainly say, oh, so who else is going? Oh, well, it's just the two of us. Okay. That's great information. You know what? Can I join you guys for lunch? So I'm going to drive myself. I'm going to meet you for 2 hours, not 5 hours. 2 hours I can manage. Great. And off I go, and then we still have some contact. I have my space time. We certainly had a nice 2-hour lunch. I left, went, but at another time, the other person mentioned to me that, not the dominant person, but the person that they were aligned with, oh, you don't want to come out, you think you're better than us, you don't want to come out with us. And so that gives me another opportunity to feed in. Well, actually, and I said to him really gently, one-on-one, and I said, no, I really love being around you guys. I'd love to spend more time, but I don't actually really feel safe with so-and-so. And here's why. And I gave 3 concrete examples. So now he was a little bit more willing to hear it because he heard it from other people. Before, the first time he was defensive, okay? But then and I said, I'm sorry to say this, but he said this to me, this to me, this to me. So I don't need to put myself kind of in that thing. So this is me protecting myself, right? So I can do the work I want to do, again, become a Buddha for the benefit of all living beings. Like, that is my intention, but you don't need to put yourself in harm's way and just hang out with those that are negative and critical. And there are some people in our lives that, and they're not into the Dharma necessarily, or maybe they are, but they're working on their stuff. I don't need to have to spend time with negative influences as much. I can just reduce a little bit of the time. I still spend time with these people, but just less time. It's okay. And it's fun time when we spend together. It's a little easier like that. So does that make sense? But I'm still looking at my mind and watching, and then I have to continue my purification, because eventually it'll make all those people, all those situations go away permanently. You can get there. Okay? Any questions?
Maybe if you are like in this conflict situation, and then you have the choice to transform your mind or work with the situation, or then you have the choice to get some distance. Maybe the situation is not that clear that you really have to protect yourself, but it's something in between. You're just not happy with the person, but really not happy, and
But
really not happy. Like, it's not a bit, but it's serious problems. Then how do you decide if you are still able to transform your mind, or if it would just be better for everybody to get some distance? So
each situation is a little different. So again, there could be, in the face of really serious harm, is you just decide I'm not safe around, I can't do it.
Yeah.
You just have to, or I absolutely cannot control my mind around that person. They're just constantly pushing my buttons. Then there's other instances where you step in there a little bit to just work with it, knowing it will be difficult, and just, you kind of give yourself over to that a little bit, if it's better to kind of be around them, or they're in a group with people, and you go, okay, I can certainly put up with them for an hour or something like that, but I'm still gonna, view it as like, wow, this is some karma arising for me. So you have to weigh each situation a little differently. Does that help?
Yeah, it's a difficult.
Yeah,
I know.
nothing's perfect as
Yeah,
far
yeah.
as it, we just have to keep working at it.
Yeah.
The main thing is to try to get out of the blame game of it's external. It's out there. It's out there. It will appear out there for us as ordinary beings. It's going to appear like, whoa, tidal wave coming in sometimes. But I have to just keep saying, my mind created this. My mind, and I don't want to create any more stuff like this. So I really need to figure out, we avoid the 10 non-virtues. That's how we behave. That's our 10 commandments in Buddhism. We familiar with the 10 non-virtues? Okay, they're divided into body, speech, and mind. So this is a little roll. This comes in the karma part. So this is the beginning, the end of the lower capable being's motivation. So once you realize I've got an incredible opportunity, precious human rebirth, fantastic. Okay, so that lights you up, and that's a counter to low self-esteem. So if anybody has low self-esteem, I'm worthless, I'm useless, never do anything right, I'm a screw up. Okay, you need to meditate on precious human rebirth. So that means you need to go to the Lamrim guides, go to that section, read that section in the small books first. One of my things on my list is a meditation guide. What are the main things? And go and learn and do some of the meditation on that. There's even guides how to meditate on it. Okay. So, and that lifts you up. You go, just like we did, a perfect opportunity to practice. And that's come from your mind. You've set that up for yourself. You created this wonderful life, Switzerland. It's fantastic ripening, but don't use up all the positive karma. Keep creating more virtue. Keep purifying. Okay. So precious human rebirth. Then I realized I am going to die. When I die, it could be a lot worse. So use that fear to take refuge. Could I take refuge in Buddhism, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha? What does that mean? Read those teachings, study that a little bit. And then once I really realize I like this path, I think it's authentic, I think I'll try this for a bit. Then we want to understand how to conduct ourselves, karma. So what we do is we avoid 3 things with our body. We avoid doing 4 things with our speech, and we avoid 3 things with our mind. What do we avoid? Number 1 with our body. Killing, harming others, and also harming ourselves. Okay, number 1 is no killing. Basic Buddhist precept. So I go down to insects as well. That's hard for some people, except we avoid killing or harming. Number 2, what do we avoid? Stealing. We avoid stealing. So we're not going to steal a car. I don't think anyone in here. But what happens is we do little stuff that leaves imprints in our mind. Okay. So did you ever go out for a meal and you ordered a nice meal and you enjoyed it? And then you notice at the end, they forgot to put one of the things on the bill. And you have a moment in your mind, you go, I'm not going to pay it. I'm not going to tell the server. Right? And then you actually pay the bill without telling them, leave the restaurant. That's stealing. That's the type of stealing, right? We used to have, in the old days before remote work, if you worked in an office, does anybody here work in an office? Okay. And you go to work in an office? 50%. Okay, 50% of the time you go to work in an office. Do you have the delectable supply closet in the office? That was a really bad area for me. All the boxes of the wonderful pens that I loved, and the notepads, and the scissors, and the staplers, and the special notebook for this, and the portfolio for that. And so they are there for your work. But if you take them home and think, I'm going to keep this as my own, it's kind of stealing like that. So there's lots of ways we steal. Then number 3, we avoid with our body, the third one of the body, we avoid. Sorry?
Intoxication.
No.
Sexual
Sexual misconduct. So not the lay precepts, but sexual misconduct, which relates to adultery and interfering with people in relationship, especially intimate relationships, and breaking them up. Okay, so we understand that. Then we have 4 we avoid with our speech. No, and these are in order of heaviness. Number 1, lying. We avoid lying. So speaking truthfully, it's the ethical conduct. Number 2, that's number 3, harsh speech. And number 2, people always miss this one, divisive speech. So and people do this in offices a lot. You talk about people behind their back, we say. We have an expression in American. Talk about people, did you know he did this? He thinks this, families do that as well. Divisive speech. So when you can genuinely say things that bring people together, that's the conduct we want to practice. Okay. 3rd is harsh speech, cursing at people, heavily criticizing people, yelling at people. We want to say things pleasantly, sincerely to people, encouraging them, positive things. The 4th with speech, we avoid gossip. Okay. Gossip is lightest of speech in that order, but it's heavy because we do it all the time. Okay. So gossip is meaningless speech or idle chatter. So you could be talking about someone behind their back. Okay. But it's also going on and on and on about the plot of the movie that you just saw that no one's interested, but you need to tell them the entire twist and turns of the whole thing. That's a type of gossip, meaningless. So I always try to question, like, is this going to help anybody, what I'm saying right now? Is there any benefit in what I'm saying? So we avoid those 4 of our speech. And then there's 3 we avoid with our mind. Number 1 is covetousness, having a greedy mind. Okay. Number 2 is harmful intent or malice. And then having a greedy mind, one of the antidotes would be wishing others well, rejoicing at all their benefits, all the good things that happen for them. With the antidote to malice, the opposite of malice is wishing others well, encouraging them in a positive way, genuine way. And the last of our mind, we avoid holding wrong views. Holding wrong views. So ultimately it relates to emptiness, having the misknowing of reality, how things really exist. And on another level, wrong views might be you think you're going to live forever in this body, like disputing the philosophy of Buddhism as garbage. So it's different if you're not sure about something. So I got into Buddhism, I wasn't sure about reincarnation. So they say if you just put it to the side for now and go into the stuff you like, that's different. And I ask you to be discerning about everything I'm saying. Please check up and investigate what I'm saying. Make sure, does this really work? Is this, it's the best way to do it, but it's helpful. I'm just giving you information. You have to put it to use like that. So those are 10 guidelines you could follow that are going to make your life better if you're keeping them. And and when I mention the list, probably a couple of them pop up for you and you go, oh, I do that. So go after that one first. Figure out what motivates you. Why do I feel like I needed to lie to this person? Even white lies create a little bit of negative karma, even though you have a good intention. Okay, so we have a lot of mixed karma, positive, negative going on, and we work with it. Okay. Yes, please.
On the everything comes from the mind topic, I just want to maybe tell back a bit what I understood to check a few things. Like how I understand that everything comes from the mind is based on my previous karma. I found myself in that situation, right? Then to face this. So that's one thing. And the second may be how much am I suffering from the situation? That's a creation of the mind, right? Because I could tremendously suffer from what is happening to me, or as you said, you can, have a different, discrimination about what's happening, and then say, okay, that leads to less suffering about what's happening to you. But then at the same time, you're not the cause.
Wait, can everyone online hear? Yeah, you can hear. Okay, great. I just want to make sure.
But at the same time, I'm not the cause of that behavior. So I'm not in the same way. If I see that person having a bad, aggressive behavior, I'm not the one causing it. Or maybe I'm a condition for that person to act in that way, but the effect of that action is going to remain with that person, right? And the same thing. So it's,
yeah, you can't control other people's minds and their activities. But if it's something that's coming into my realm and building me up and making me feel great or making me feel horrible, that's a result of my mind. But I can't take care of their mind. And I mean, you can certainly say to somebody, could you not be so rude? I mean, if it's somebody close, you know, of course you can suggest that, but I'm not responsible for their mind. I can't control their mind. Of course, we raise children to try to be, you know, of course you have certain roles with people that,
Yeah.
yeah. But please continue,
No,
yeah.
and then as you said, also like at the right time, if you have the opportunity to have the person also that you correct at their behavior, and that's
Sure.
also helping that person, no?
Sure,
Because-
absolutely. So that's the thing is what one thing we can do is sometimes check in. Let's say somebody's really negative and we're noticing, and then slowly, depending on the relationship you have with them, is what will factor in how you respond to them and how you can communicate. Some people very close to us, we can be pretty honest and say, you know, can I talk to you about something? But I'm going to do it gently. I'm not attacking them like, you're such a jerk, you're always yelling at people. You know, you want to do it skillfully and do it again, pick an appropriate time to do it. So that I'm not catching them off guard, they're sick. You just say, could we, you know, or you might catch them right after one of these moments to say, you know, one of the things I learned, and this was going on actually, oddly enough, at the center where I went, but some things people would say, you know, just because people are Buddhists, they're not Buddhas. So some of the things out of people's mouths, I'd be like, oh my God, like, what a manifestation I'm seeing. Like, that is the rudest thing I have ever heard anybody say. It was so shocking sometimes. But if they said it to me, I owned it. I'm like, okay, this is my mind. I'm sure I've done this before or something. But what I would do is to counter it is when somebody says something really rude, suddenly I'd pause for a moment, I look them right in the eye, and then I'd say, are you okay? Because clearly they're not, you know, like, but they would, you know, without any attack of like, why do you say, you know, I just be like, and I sincerely meant, are you okay? Like, you're basically what we would say having a klesha attack. Okay, klesha is Sanskrit for delusion. And they're really, you know, and then they suddenly realize that they kind of be like, that's not really what they wanted to say or the way they went. And then they'd say, oh, I'm sorry, you know, or there's other, and these are just kind of techniques that you can learn online that aren't necessarily Buddhist, but another time if they were saying something like that, I would actually say, like as if I didn't hear, excuse me? So they have to repeat it. And they never want to repeat something that rude. Like I find them kind of be like, do they really want to say that again? So there's a couple just little techniques you could insert that I've learned just through communication workshops and things but I still have to own it with my mind that it's coming. But again, at the right moment, I could, like I did with these two people in my family, to say, you know, very gently at the right time, you know, it's often never a right time, but I finally found an opportunity, but very clear examples, you know, and not the attacking, the launching on them of you're always like this, but I kind of say, you know, when you told me, you know, had that joke and then you both laughed, I just felt really demeaned, you know, or I felt it just made me really sad that like, so it was more about my experience. This made me feel like this. And then he got to think he didn't really want me to feel that way. So maybe the behavior needs to change rather than you're always like this. And you have to stop being so critical and you have to, you know, so then they're in the defensive. So a few techniques I've just learned over the years that they're a little more gentle. And then also let go. So you might have a conversation, right? As best as you could do, gently, compassionately, holding that motivation as much as I could, you know, and I might even notice and go, yeah, there's some self-cherishing here. I'm doing the best I can. Okay, good enough. And then let go. I've said what I had to say and no changes come. Doesn't matter. Okay, I certainly said, there might be another opportunity. You might decide to say it again, maybe a third time, last, and then and I've had people come to me at a center and, you know, she's still like that, and we did it, you know, and I'm like, sometimes you just let it go. That's it. It's not going to change. And you know how it changes? Change your mind. It's amazing the external reality you create when you change your mind. When you do the inner work, the external reality, that's how it changes. I'm not kidding. So it's so significant, but we don't see it happening quickly enough. So we give up. It's a lot of effort to get our minds in those spaces, but you can create anything for yourself. Amazingly, but it does take a lot of effort, but it's possible. Really possible. Is that
Thank you,
helpful?
thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe what
And are we okay that people need a 10-minute break or you're okay? Everybody online, okay? Do we want to take a stress? Should we just do a 10-minute stretch break, or if you need to go to the bathroom, let's just take 10 minutes. Great. Okay, everybody seems, yeah. I think actually, I might.
hiring Magandhi, or you mentioned Nelson Mandela, just to say no, I don't participate.
Yeah, there's some
This
really
people-
inspiring leaders around the world. Very
Yeah.
inspiring. I mean, Václav Havel was another I found inspiring. Martin Luther King Jr., incredibly inspiring in the United States. Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela. There's a whole list of people you could find. Who was the guy? I forget his name. The leader of Costa Rica at one point. Another incredible. There's many heroes and heroines around the planet that really, and some of them are unsung. Like they're just some person not famous, and they're doing. There's a lot of good going on in the world. It's just not in the media because it's not sensational enough.
Yeah.
But there's incredible good stuff going on. It's just not covered in the media. So I limit my news because it's heavy. I don't need that in my mind.
What was the first one you mentioned?
Václav Havel, who was the leader of the Czech,
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm saying his name,
Yeah,
or
very-
the leader of the Czech, he was a poet, for God's sake, but had, some way, and I think, I was recently there and I was impressed with I was very impressed with that country. I mean, the little bit I saw of it, but, and some people said, oh, well, it's because of him and I'm like, that was impressive. The education system, the transportation system, just the way people, yeah, it was interesting. My travels, if you get an inspiring leader, what can happen can be very significant. In Germany, you had, I think somewhat inspiring leader. I thought so. That seemed to help quite a bit. We've had certain people, we had Barack Obama in the States for 8 years. That, unfortunately, Congress wasn't cooperating at all, so I wasn't able to do some of the good things I think he could have done. But there's many other people around that we don't even know. They're not even famous doing good things. Somebody in your community, some incredible people working in soup kitchens and working with the homeless. There's a Catholic nun in Philadelphia that started this incredible shelter, homeless project feeding people, and it's huge now in Philadelphia. I mean, she's very well known as a result, but she just started, and now we got to take care of people. So many homeless in Philadelphia. So great, her efforts, and now it got bigger. More people wanted to participate. Big rich people give her lots of money. She's got a whole team, and she's retiring, and she's so inspiring. So inspiring. That. We'll try. Okay, I think we're ready for a little meditation now that we digested our lunch. We watched our movies. Okay. So don't forget again, sleeping motivation tonight, waking motivation tomorrow morning. Okay. And spend some time, you need a little break when you leave here, but spend some time today, rest of the day. Just watch your mind. Notice your reactions to things. Notice what you impute, what you project onto other things. Yeah, and notice how sure you are of the projection, how you believe in the projection, how much you believe in that projection. So let's just also give ourselves a little space for our mind right now. It's a meditation on the nature of the mind. Clarity of consciousness, clarity of consciousness. There's different ways to do this meditation. Just find that comfortable posture. Get all the people here. Okay, great. . And just allow your mind to settle on a normal, natural breath. So please visualize right now that you are seated on the bank of a magnificent, crystal clear lake. So you have a big lake here in Zurich. But just imagine the lake is empty of any boats, surrounded by beautiful mountains, but you cannot really see the edges, all the edges of the lake. It's expansive. And the surface, incredibly clear, unrippled. You're seated looking out over this expanse of this beautiful lake, expansive, translucent, like your mind. That is like your mind. Merge yourself with this experience with the lake as best as you can, keeping the focus there. The distractions will come. Thoughts come into your mind. It's very normal. Imagine them like bubbles that rise from the depths of the lake to the surface, creating some sort of disturbance on the surface of the lake. So if you have a small thought, something mundane, small bubble on the surface, creating small disturbance to the lake. More agitated thought, more delusion activated, attachment, pride, jealousy, fear, depression, anger, bigger bubble rising to the surface, creating more disturbance. Just like these delusions create more disturbance in your mind. So as you try to focus on, again, the expansive, luminous clarity of the lake that is like your mind, like the true nature of your mind, keep the focus there, and when a distraction comes, just see it as a bubble coming to the surface. Can you let it go more quickly? The bubble either pops or dissolves back into the lake. And notice the ripples then subsiding. So let's look at your thoughts for a moment now. There's distractions that come into your mind. Manifesting as thoughts, ideas, memories, moments of consciousness, one after another, after another. Where do they come from? Where does the thought come from? There is a space of awareness there that is your mind. So instead of focusing on the thoughts themselves, see if you can find the space between the thoughts. The space between the thoughts. It's more subtle. And see if you can focus on that instead. And stare at that as best as you can. And going back to the thoughts for a moment. Sometimes when you feel very afflicted, can't get any space in your mind, just let the thoughts go. So imagining they are bubbles arising, but they're just floating off into space. Just try to practice that as much as you can, letting them float off, let them go. Instead of ruminating the negative thoughts, instead of thinking that thought over and over, it's not beneficial. You don't need to exercise that in your mind. See if you can let it go more quickly. Countering with thoughts of love, lots of thoughts of compassion, something uplifting as soon as you can. And some image of that as well, you can replace the negative thoughts with. So slowly return yourself back here to the space of the room. And we can conclude our meditation. When you're ready, slowly open your eyes. So a really helpful meditation to counter, sometimes at least, please, a few times a week, you try to do this, just imagine, this is really the nature of my mind. Not clutter, not busyness, or anger, or anxiety. Just so if you'd like to plant yourself next to the lake and just remind yourself, just have a lot of bubbles coming up right now, that's all. Let it quiet down and keep the concentration on the still, clear surface of the lake. Or go into the space between the thoughts. How was that for you? Get a little sense of the different things get different people into the nature mind. Practice a little bit. And you can think tonight about where does the thought come from, right? Because we add a lot of heaviness onto certain thoughts, right? Oh my goodness. Certain thoughts take over, so you want to understand where do they come from? And how much emphasis we put on it, and not much essence there to the thought, other than what we make it, what we impute on it, right? And what our karma dictates we impute on it. Okay? Make sense? Okay. Any other last questions online or
So one question, Rachel, then, what is your beautiful human being?
precious human rebirth
Precious.
or perfect human rebirth? Yes.
Okay, just the name, I went to write
Yeah,
it down.
it's either precious human rebirth or perfect human
Okay.
rebirth. So on that
Okay.
list I have, I mentioned like a cheat sheet, we call it, like a helpful support. On there is something called LOM RIM outlines. LOM RIM outlines, further down the list. And there's a link to the FTMT shop. And I think you can even I don't know if it costs something, it might be minimal, but you can download it to a device. By Annie Karen at Kopan Monastery. She teaches a lot of intro courses for years. Years she's done. She made these outlines. So that way, if you're not sure of the Lam Rim, it's nice to read a Lam Rim book on the side, but she's also got the whole thing laid out of the essentials of each topic, what you meditate on. So the beginning starts, first she has Guru devotion, she has the mind, and then precious human rebirth. 8 freedoms, 10 richnesses. That's the beginning of what you meditate on. Yeah. And then further down the list, I have ways of guides of what you meditate on, how you meditate on it. It's really helpful. Then if you'd like, I know Venerable Gendon, the monk from Holland, he's going to lead next summer a 3-month Lamrim retreat. Maybe this summer, a 1-month Lamrim retreat. But if you want to taste, in Amsterdam this autumn, in September, I'm leading a weekend course, a city retreat on that. So you can also participate online, I believe, and just join us and do the sessions like that. Really talking about guru devotion, guru yoga, and we'll do a mid-length guru yoga, and then how do you meditate? How do we really do some of these longer meditations? So if you want to do that, it's just a weekend, you can join online. Maitreya Institute, our center in Amsterdam, and the link, and you register for that. Okay, let's finish. Everybody online, okay? Great. So we're going to finish there, and I'm going to lead some of the dedication prayers. So I'm going to share my screen. So I'd really like to thank all of you for your online and in person, all for your wonderful energy. Thank you so much for your focus, for all the hosting of the wonderful lunch. And thank you so much for trying and for being here, especially in the heat, whatever. But it's actually quite comfortable here. And may we dedicate and take whatever positive energy that we've created to really investing in our practice, something reasonable for you that you're really going to do. So start small. If you don't already have something, you can always enhance that practice and really try to find the rich consistency in it. You know, help each other, you know, use the center like that and really try to build something that is going to really benefit, keep your mind balanced, and think about all the living beings that really need your help. So let that motivate us, even though suffering is uncomfortable, but we can get there. We certainly have a perfect situation right now. So when we dedicate to our developing this rich, consistent practice that will lead us to spiritual awakening as quickly as possible, because so many need our help, and then we'll be able to help perfectly and unlimitedly. We'll just I'm going to do the chants. If you know the chants, we can join in just so you hear how we traditionally do in Tibetan. Janju Senjo Rinpoche, Make Panyam Ke Gyorchi, Ke Wanyam Pame Payam, Gane Gandu Pelwarsho. Let's just read that one in English. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that is not arisen arise and grow. May that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantabhadra too realize things as they are, I too dedicate all these merits in the best way that I may follow their perfect example. We're going to go to the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. all powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. I'm just going to go to the prayer for Rinpoche's swift return. And we'll do the first one, which was written by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Fearless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Prabhakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings, through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings you suddenly departed to peace, what a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. So I'd also like to dedicate to all the beings around the planet who need additional healing. May they receive it immediately. For all the wars on the planet to end instantly. For all the minds of the leaders of the world to be turned instantly to bodhicitta and emptiness. For the flourishing of all of our centers, especially Latsam Center here, and harmony at and among all of our centers. Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. And we'll meet tomorrow again at 10 o'clock, 10 in the morning. And I